Right now, as missiles fall on Israel and the Strait of Hormuz sits paralyzed, the world is watching a war it thinks it understands. Iranian missiles, Israeli air defenses, American warships, oil prices are spiking, but there's another war running underneath this one, quieter, older, and in many ways, far more dangerous. It is a war not fought with weapons, but with money, oil, information, and fear. And to understand it, you have to go back, not to 1979, not to October the 7th, but to a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, where one of history's most audacious economic attacks was born. In 1940, Nazi Germany launched one of the most audacious attacks in the history of warfare. No bombs were used, no tanks, just paper, ink, and a plan to destroy Britain from the inside out. They called it Operation Bernhard. 8 decades later, a different enemy is running a strikingly similar play, and most people have no idea it's happening. Here's what the Nazis understood that most people don't. You don't have to defeat an army to defeat a nation. You just have to make its money worthless. And starting in 1942, SS officer Bernhard Kruger forced 140 Jewish prisoners inside Sachsenhausen concentration camp to do one thing: counterfeit British pounds, and do so perfectly. At scale, they printed over 130 million pounds sterling in near flawless fake notes. The plan was simple: flood Britain with worthless currency, trigger hyperinflation, collapse public trust, and watch the economy implode while the Luftwaffe was still dropping bombs from above. It was a two-front war, one you could see and one you couldn't. But to understand Iran's version of this playbook, you have to go back to the beginning, when Ayatollah Khomeini seized power in 1979. One of his first acts wasn't military, it was ideological. He authorized a Persian translation of Mein Kampf and had it distributed as a foundational political text. He didn't just admire Hitler's methods, he adapted them. Khomeini wrote his own ideological framework, Valyat-e-Faqih, the rule of the Islamic jurist, that borrowed Hitler's core architecture, a supreme leader above the law, a scapegoated enemy to unite the population, and the destruction of that enemy as a divine and political mandate. The enemy, then as now, was the Jew. The target, then as now, was Western civilization. The weapon of choice wasn't always a gun. It was often money. Now fast forward to today, Iran doesn't have the military reach to confront the United States or Europe in a straight-on fight. But Iran's leadership has studied history, and they've built a modern version of Operation Bernhard, more sophisticated, more diffused, and running on multiple fronts simultaneously. The most powerful front is oil. Iran and its proxies, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias across Iraq and Syria, are strategically positioned around the world's most critical energy choke points: the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Together, these three passages carry nearly a third of the world's seaborne oil. Close them or simply make them feel dangerous, and you don't need to fire a single missile at the West to hurt it. When Iran wants to send a message to Washington or Brussels, it doesn't always fire a missile. Sometimes it just makes those shipping lanes feel a little less safe. Oil prices spike, energy bills rise in Berlin, Chicago, and Paris. Inflation creeps back, central banks raise interest rates. Governments face angry voters who have no idea why filling up a car suddenly costs twice what it did just a few months ago. And Tehran sits back and watches the West destabilize itself. Every tanker that's harassed, every shipping route that's disrupted, every barrel of uncertainty adds to global markets. That is Operation Bernhard with a different currency. And we're watching this play out in real time right now. Since the Strait of Hormuz was effectively closed at the start of this war, oil has crossed $114 a barrel, the highest since the COVID epidemic. Shipping insurance, the rates of that have multiplied. Asian economies that depend entirely on Gulf oil are facing fuel shortages. The global inflation that was just beginning to ease is threatening to return. Qatar's energy minister has warned it could bring down the economies of the world. This is not a side effect of the war. This is a central strategic objective. Now, Iran's leadership understands that every dollar on the oil price is a dollar of political pain in Western capitals. And political pain translates into pressure on governments to stop the fighting on Iran's terms. Iran also runs one of the most sophisticated sanction evasion networks on the planet, moving oil through ghost fleets, laundering money through front companies across the region, and funding its proxies with cash that never officially exists. The ghost fleet alone, hundreds of aging tankers operating without proper insurance, transponders switched off, transferring oil ship to ship in the dead of night. This fleet has moved billions of dollars of Iranian crude to China, India, and beyond, keeping the regime financially alive through years of maximum pressure sanctions. Now, this isn't just economic survival, it's economic warfare. The goal is to keep fighting, to keep destabilizing, to keep the pressure on, while Western governments struggle to explain to their publics why the sanctions aren't working and why the price of filling up the car keeps going up and up.
Right now, Israel is facing one of its most critical moments, and we are here bringing you the truth as it unfolds. Today, we woke up to sirens, a state of emergency across Israel, and we are live right here, right now. TBN Israel is on the ground bringing you what's happening as it happens. No delay, no filter, just the truth. This is what we do, but we cannot do it without you. Your prayers keep us going. Your gift keeps us here. Stand with us at tbn.org/standwithisrael.
Now, there's the third front that connects the financial and the military, and it is the one most people miss entirely. Iran targets critical infrastructure not just to cause physical damage, but to trigger economic cascades. So when Houthi drones hit Saudi Aramco facilities in 2019, they briefly took out 5% of the global oil supply in a single morning. When Iranian drones hit Dubai's airport and the UAE's financial district in this war, they weren't just attacking buildings, they were attacking the confidence behind the economy. The confidence of investors, of airlines, of multinational companies, of the insurance markets that underpin global trade. Now, 3 Amazon Web Service data centers in the UAE were struck in this conflict. Think about what that means. Not just servers going dark, but the signal it sends to every technology company considering whether the Gulf is safe or not to do business. Iran is deliberately targeting the economic nervous system of the modern world, not just its military hardware. And then there's the front that people underestimate most: propaganda as an economic weapon. Iran invests heavily in information operations designed to amplify social division in democracies, shake investor confidence, and make free societies look ungovernable and weak. Because an unstable society is an economically vulnerable society. The Nazis understood this in 1940. Iran's Revolutionary Guard understands it in 2026. Sow enough chaos, and the markets do your work for you. Every piece of disinformation that deepens political polarization in America or in Europe is an investment in economic instability. Divided societies make bad economic decisions. They struggle to maintain the political consensus that's needed for long-term energy policy, for sanctions enforcement, or coherent strategic response. Now, Iran doesn't need to win the argument. It just needs to make sure the argument never ends. So what's the same and what's different? Operation Bernhard was centralized. One plan, one officer, one single target. Iran's economic warfare is decentralized and deniable. It turns through proxies and cutouts that make attribution difficult and response even harder. The Nazis targeted one currency. Iran targets an entire global order: energy markets, shipping confidence, Western political cohesion, and the patience of democratic electorates. And the most important parallel in this, both strategies exploit the gap between visible war and the invisible war. In 1940, the British public saw the Blitz. They didn't see Operation Bernhard. And today, the world sees the missile strikes, but it doesn't see the economic architecture that's being quietly dismantled underneath. Operation Bernhard ultimately failed. The war ended, the prisoners forced to print those notes survived to bear witness. And the regime that conceived it was buried in the rubble of its own ideology. That is not ancient history. That is a template for how evil operates and for how it ends. There is every reason to believe that good will win once more. The free world has overcome this strategy before, and it has the tools, the intelligence, and the moral clarity to overcome it again. But not if it looks away. Not if it mistakes the missiles for the whole war. The battlefield today runs through oil terminals and currency reserves and the comment section of social media platforms, pushing panic into your phone every single day. Now, the world can't afford to be blind to this strategy. Naming it is not alarmism. It is the first and most essential act of defense. The good news is that this strategy, for all its sophistication, has a fatal weakness. It only works in the dark. The moment the free world names it, maps it, and moves against it, together, the architecture starts to collapse. Now that means that coordinated sanctions enforcement with real teeth. It means energy independence as a national security priority, because every barrel of domestically produced oil or kilowatt of renewable energy is a vote against Iranian leverage. It means governments, financial institutions, and tech platforms working in concert to shut down the ghost fleets, the shell companies, and the information pipelines that keep this machine running. It means America and Europe standing shoulder to shoulder, not just militarily, but economically and ideologically, and making clear that the rule-based order is not up for negotiation. Now, history has shown us that when the free world decides to see clearly, act collectively, and hold the line on its values, it wins. It has beaten this before, a genocidal ideology wrapped in nationalism, fueled by hatred, and weaponized through economic sabotage. The world faced that in the 20th century, and it did not bow. And it will not bow now either. The tools are there, the will is growing, and the truth, which is always the most powerful weapon of all, is on our side. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.